をよく知ってたね。
実は俺も初耳だったり、バイト先の先輩に教えてもらったんだ。
あ、あの人でしょ。美人で博識なお姉さん。
ああ、うん。いい情報はほとんどあの人が持っていると言っても過言じゃないかも。
仲良しなんだ。
シフトが被ることが多いからね。綾瀬さん？
Days with My Stepsister, episode number 4. The issue or non-issue of this show, depending on what side of the field you're on, depending on if you're a glass half empty, glass half full type person, depending if you are into this genre or if you're just in here for different reasons. But the main point of contention I have with the show, albeit the voice acting is incredible and animation is really, really great. But the main point of contention I have with the show is due to its slow pacing, its slice of life nature, its monotone nature, because you have to think about when they speak, they kind of just speak like this. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for taking the time. Because of its very monotone, kind of on purpose, by the way, what can end up happening as a viewer is it's a fine line between enjoyment and between bored. And they have to kind of figure out, and not saying that they haven't, by the way, but the studio, really has to make sure that it's teetering towards entertained and not boring. Because it's very easy for a viewer to slip into the bored category. And I would be remiss to tell you today that in this episode, I didn't slip into that category. Now, last week, with the whole situation that we had where Ayase was throwing herself at her brother, whatever, or stepbrother, whatever you call it, as she was throwing herself at Asamura, let's just say his name that way, the peaks of the episode into entertainment were a lot higher because there was a lot more at stake. There was a lot more oh my gosh, moments. In this week's episode, though, because it's really, the episode kind of, went into this motion, was starts off the episode where Asamura is declaring to me and you, the viewer, the problem, which is I live with a stranger. Okay, so he can acknowledge that his dad, and this is, it's something to think about too, right? Like, he didn't meet his stepsister until his dad and her mom decided to move in together. I do think that that's kind of fucked up a little bit. And the reason I think that is, like, by human nature, especially when you're in your adult era, and as you're older, as I'm sure his dad, late 30s, 40s probably, when you're of that age, it has to be assumed that you don't just decide to move in with somebody or marry somebody. It's probably something that happens over at very least 3-month period, but you would assume 6 months to a year to 18 months that they were seeing each other. Now, again, use details from before. He did very much say, like, hey, I was going through it at a work event. I was at her bar and we just hit it off and we started dating. I'm sure, again, that there's more nuance to that story. But it would have been nice to say, okay, as dad begins to, come to the idea of, like, okay, I want to move in with this woman. I want to marry this woman. He should have talked to her and be like, okay, I think our kids need to meet, make sure that everything's copacetic there. Kind of start that relationship a little earlier. I do think that was a big, I just have to be 100%. If his dad was my friend, I'd be like, that's a big failure on your part. You need to have the kids meet, bro. Getting away from that, the episode started off with Asamura talking about how they're strangers, and if he were to, answer the question of who she is, he struggles with, kind of conveying it or putting it into words. Hey, totally understandable at this point. She is a stranger. Again, big failure on dad for allowing that to happen. They could have, sparked the relationship a little sooner. But now he's struggling to figure that out. And with last week's, or the events that occurred prior with her revealing herself in a way, that kind of throws the wrench in it a little bit more. But he's very much making the, attempt to get closer to her. And conversely, Ayase is making the attempt to get closer to Asamura. So the episode starts with them getting closer and her asking to be coached or tutored on literature. And the episode kind of goes in that nature to where, they're figuring out her flaws and what's working, what's not working. Then he takes, he's at school and he has Saki's best friend, and her best friend's a redhead. And I was like, okay, they should date. I think one of them needs to date somebody else so that they don't fuck up their familial life. I think if either one of them were to date, like he could just go date the redheaded girl or whatever. If just one of them could go and date somebody, I think that would eliminate even if they get close, I think that would eliminate the romanticness of that potential closeness that they're gonna get. Anyways, he meets her. He tries to find ways to, coach or tutor her better. Then that extends out to his coworker, and he talks to her coworker about her, and he gets, ideas. There was a really cool little BGM thing that happened to where, music is good for study. They had a really artistic scene where very beautiful. Like, I'm going to save that scene for a future video when I need to use it for like background stuff. Really awesome stuff there. Very beautiful. And then the episode just kind of ends with Ayase getting a little bit jealous of the coworker, but not really showing it in emotion because she doesn't really show emotions that way. Because she's broken, whatever. And I think Asamura kind of, realizing that a little bit. And the kind of episode just kind of ends, and we got a preview for next week, and next week's called A Late Show and The Real Deal. So a little worried about what's going to come next week. It's the show definitely does capture that essence of making me feel anxious, and it makes me feel anxious of when they're going to cross the line. Because once that happens, in the kind of situation that they're in, there really is no... You kind of ruin that forever. Like, there's really no going back. And I completely understand the temptations there and everything else, and their kids. And because they're kids, your brain doesn't quite... You're not that forward-thinking. Even the very intelligent kids, they're not that much forward-thinking. Like, there's a limitation to it. So I definitely understand the realism behind it, on why they may cross the line, but I'm definitely very anxious of when they do. So to kind of put a button on it, I'm still very much enjoying the show. I still love the essence of what it's capturing. Not a big fan of the source material. And when I say that, I'm not saying that I'm not a fan of the manga or light novel. I'm not a fan of the topic of the source material of like the forbidden love fruit. But I do tend to watch a few shows that way, Thankfully, there's no blood relation here, so that kind of, makes it better, I guess. But I will say, like, as we move forward, if episodes continue to teeter that entertained bored line and it continues to teeter more towards bored, I can definitely understand why myself or you or another may say, like, hey, I'm going to step back from the show because it's just boring. And I think as long as the studio dean, which is, I believe is the studio, as long as they continue to be wary of that and skew us more towards entertained, I think that they'll knock it out of the park. But then the real reality of it too is, this studio also has two other very similar anime this season. They have, what do you call it? No, I think it's just one other anime, because I think they finished the other one. The other anime they have this season is Twilight Out of Focus, which is about roommates, and I think it's a BL anime. I'm not really 100%, but I know they have another anime this season too, so, Anyways, I'll let you guys go. Thank you for being with me this week. I'll see you guys next week for episode 5. Looking forward to reading your comments on the show below. All right, peace out.